Alrighty, let's start today with the USD CAD since we do have high impact news on both CAD pairs and USD pairs. Okay, so this will be a good pair to monitor the movements when news happen, basically. If you're not comfortable with trading with the news, simply just stay out of it, okay? But for the people who are or who just want to learn, you can take this as an opportunity to do so. So I've already marked my sell zone up here, my buy zone down here, and this is where the current price was at a few minutes ago before the H4 closed. Okay, so this is the zone that I was going to monitor. If it respected, then potentially we'll just drop into this, but if it closed above, then I will wait for this opportunity over here for a sell. Okay, so now the H4, this particular H4 just closed 2 minutes ago, so it closed just below this engulfing fail, right? This was an engulfing buy that failed over here. So now that it is respecting this zone, I might use this key level if the price retraces back into the zone. I've marked my M15s, my M5 zones, just in case if the price decides to retrace back in here, I'll try to sell down over here, down to this, my buy zone over here, right? Because from this to this is around 87 pips. And if you were able to get the buy from here to here, then that will also be another 87 pips. So is it worth the risk? That is completely up to you. But if you want to wait for this zone and you want to hold up until this, you can TP some over here and then hold for the rest. Just set BE to hold for here. That will be 185, around 185 pips, okay? So this is really how you kind of have to gauge your risk appetite when it comes to trading. If not, then you just stay out of it. If you're not confident in the setup, stay out of it. If you feel like it could go even lower, then you just wait for a lower zone. That's basically it. All right, so now why did I mark this buy zone? An engulfing sell failed over here. Price came back, created an engulfing buy, then showed reactions. Did it close within? It did. It has a little green discoloration over here. So it did close within. So we have your A, your B, your C, right, for a buy. Now this current price, what is it now? It's still an engulfing fail because no engulfing sell has happened yet. This is also an engulfing fail, right? Engulfing buy that failed over here. Quite fresh because the price did not come back to poke or retrace back to leave a wick at all. So this is a very, very fresh zone for a sell. Now, what can USD CAD do? Okay, let's do it this way. Screenshot. Excuse me for my sniffles. My allergies have been quite bad. Now, current price is over here. If it decides to still respect, right, this zone, but if it wants to retrace back into the key level, and showing that it respects this key level, this is my M15, this is my M5 for the green zone, another M15, another M5. But if it decides to just come back into the key level, I'll wait for these two zones up above. Okay? If it comes and H4 still respects them, potentially, we can catch a sell down. But if it decides to just drop down all the way, it's a potential that can also happen without retracing back into the key level, and it drops down all the way to the buy zone, respecting this zone, meaning the H4 closes within, then potentially we can try to catch a buy back up. But if it closes below this zone, then potentially it could go even lower. After breaking, it could retrace back into the key level for a better sell down or just shoot down in one go. Okay, vice versa. If the price, right, decides to come up to test the key level, but the key level and the sellers in these zones, right, we're not able to push the price down and keep the price below this H4, then potentially it could just break. And if it does break the zone, then we know we have a fresher zone, right, up here for a sell, a higher fresh zone for a sell. So it could do that. And maybe after breaking, it could also do this before bouncing back up, trying to reach the sell zone up top. Okay, so that is for USD CAD. Now, where do you monitor your entries? Again, if you haven't gotten the hint, I've already marked M5 or M15, right? If you can't find any zones or any setups in M15, then you switch to M5 because it's always better to trade with the higher time frame as they have more power and they have more movement. Okay, so that's for the entries. Let me just do this so you know. Okay, so that's for USD CAD. Then we go to the next pair, Euro AUD. Okay, I've marked my sell zone up here, my buy zone down here. This is a zone that I am going to monitor how it goes during this afternoon. All right, so why did I mark this as a sell zone? This was an engulfing buy that failed over here, and then the process of failing created an engulfing sell. So you have your engulfing fail meets engulfing sell, or your A, your B. Now this buy zone down here is an engulfing sell that failed. Price came back, showed reaction, did not close within, and over here it also did not close within, right? But it did leave reactions. So the buyers over here are really trying to keep the price up top. When the price came back for the third time after 1, 2, this is the third time, it finally closed within and created an engulfing buy. So you have your A, your B. Now where the current price is at, right? Why did I mark this? This is actually in the black zone, but I want to monitor this particular engulfing fail, because if it decides to respect this engulfing fail, then the price would just drop into this buy zone. But if it breaks this engulfing fail, then we know it potentially could want to test this zone. So for me, I will not take a trade in this zone, right? I'm just showing you what I can monitor and what you can monitor, how the movements of this particular pair could go, because this is the fresh engulfing fail. The H4 only poked at this key level before dropping. And if H4 decides to just respect this, then it will just drop all the way in here. But if it decides to break, then we have a zone up here. Alright, so what can UD do? Let's draw it out. Again, if it respects this, it can do this, right? Or if it does not want to retrace into the key level, it can just drop all the way into the buy zone. If it respects it, then potentially it could bounce back up and we can catch a buy on M5 or M15. But if it breaks this zone, then we know it potentially could go even lower. Okay, vice versa. If it breaks this zone, then potentially it could just shoot up into our sell zone up above. After breaking, it can retrace back into the key level for a better buy up to test the sell zone up above. Okay, so that's how the movement goes. If you're not comfortable with this, simply don't trade. I'm not going to trade within this, these two, or this key level actually, because I don't like trading. Sometimes the Euro session is not that great, especially if there is news. So I would like to wait for the US session instead. Right? So now that you know where to enter, you know where the key levels are. Where do you place your SLs? 10 to 20 pips. Above or below the zones, meaning these zones, right? If you have quite a capital to float, then you can do this, above or below the zones, like this, 10 to 20 pips. Or if you have a smaller account and you don't want to float that much, because sometimes H4 zones can be quite big, then you just set 40 pips from your entries. Okay, so once the price comes into the key level, you find your M5 or M15 setup for either a buy or a sell, wait for all the setups to complete, then you enter, then you count 40 pips from that. Okay. Now, last but not least, we have GJ, one of my favorite pairs. Actually, today, the pairs today are all my favorite. Okay, we have a sell zone up here and a buy zone down here. Why did I mark this as a sell zone? Because this was an engulfing sell. The current price was testing over here actually. There was an H4 over here, an engulfing sell that the price stopped at, right? But it left a wick up here. Why did I not choose this particular engulfing sell? Because This was the engulfing sell that started this whole movement. So I want all of this particular push down. Okay, so I'm using this engulfing sell instead to monitor for a potential sell. Because if you can see, it only tapped once, right? This has already been tested and the current price was over here. Now, I don't want to use that because I want to get the highs and the lows. I want to get the full movements between zones. Hence, I use this engulfing sell. And the key level is very much still fresh because nothing has tested it yet. Now, for the buy zone, we have an engulfing sell over here. I'm using this doji candle in particular. Why? Because there was an engulfing buy that happened in here. Okay, so this, you will have your A and your B. Was this a C? No, because it did not close within the zone. Although it did leave reactions and poke the key level, the H4 candle did not close within. So it's not an ABC, but rather an A or B, meaning engulfing fail meets engulfing buy, hence your buy zone. Okay, so now, what can GJ do? Right, in 3 minutes, M15 is going to close. So let's screenshot this. Current price is over here. If it decides to climb up into our our sell zone, and respects it, then potentially it could drop back down. But if it breaks our sell zone, then potentially it could go even higher. After breaking, the price can either shoot up in one go or retrace back into the key level for a better buy up. Vice versa for the buy zone. Okay, if it drops down into our buy zone and respects it, then potentially it could bounce back up. But if it breaks it, then we know potentially could go even lower. Okay, so that's the 3 pairs for today. Please trade smart, trade wisely. If it didn't enter the zone, don't chase the market. Wait for the market to come to you and wait for the setups to appear first if you have the time to monitor. If you don't, you can set limit orders, but just know that it gives a higher risk because you didn't monitor the confirmations. The more strategies you know and the more strategies you can put together to kind of check the confluence of the prices in the markets, the better. Okay, but it's not wrong. So that's it for today. I'll update after the EU session or the Euro session ends. Bye.